Hey guys, welcome to the second installment of Rickshaw Girl. So as you remember, yesterday, which hopefully you watched it yesterday, I don't think there are a lot of views, so you guys should be also keeping up with Read Aloud. Now is a good time if you just want to relax and like color in a mandala or just sort of lie down or knit, do something else. It is still good practice to be listening to a story, especially about one with a character whose perspective we don't often hear about. So remember, she was talking about her dad's rickshaw. So he spent a lot of money on it. It was brand new, and he actually took out a loan to buy it. And she was wondering maybe, so they repaint them after a while, sort of like if a car gets old, you might repaint it. She was wondering what would get painted next. Mother's worried voice drifted through the open door. How much did you earn this morning, husband? Naima tried not to listen, but she couldn't help it. She was glad Rashida was stooping over the marigolds in the back, too far away to hear. Not enough, Father replied. Mother's sigh sounded like air leaking from a tire. Naima counted to 5. Ah, air leaking from a tire, so it sounded like air. So that's a simile, right? It's comparing her sigh to air coming out of a tire, so think of that sound. She braced herself for words she'd overheard before. If only one of our girls had been a boy, Mother said. Father gave his usual quick answer. I have 2 wonderful daughters. They're just as good as 2 boys. Or just as good as boys. But you look so tired. Salim takes his father's rickshaw out every afternoon so his father can rest. Our girls can't do that for you. Isn't Naima the best Alpana painter in the village? Father asked. Doesn't she take care of her sister like a tiger guarding a cub? Another simile. And Rashida is the best student in school. Yes, but Alpanas can't put rice on the table. And what use is it if Rashida is smart? We can't afford her school fees next year unless we pay off that rickshaw loan. Rashida was coming back. Naima dumped the rag in the half-empty pail of water her sister was carrying. Fiercely, she scrubbed out her Alpana design until no traces of the rice powder remained on the threshold. What are you doing, sister? Rashida asked. You weren't finished. That was the best one yet. Naima didn't answer. Mother was right. All that a girl could do was cook, clean, wash clothes, and decorate. She wasn't allowed to do any work that brought in money. Painting Alpanas wouldn't help Father get rest or add to their earnings. It was a waste of time. Rashida, Naima, come inside. Your father is hungry. Salim drove by again. This time, a plump passenger sat on the bench of the rickshaw. He was a rich-looking passenger, juicy with money. It's an interesting way to use juicy. So juicy normally means like, right, it's something is sort of oozing. If you take a juicy peach, it'll dribble down. Juicy with money meaning he had a lot of it. Naima scowled and followed her sister into the hut. So, the question is, do you think she's scowling at the passenger? Or do you think she's scowling because she sees Salim doing something she can't? And you guys might now already be getting a sense of what the conflict in the story might be. Stories are interesting when there's a problem. So you're probably already sort of seeing that. The eggplant curry and lentils were tasty, but Naima couldn't eat. Father did look tired. What if he got sick again? Last time he had coughed and shivered so badly that he hadn't been able to drive the rickshaw for weeks. They had used most of their savings to buy medicine. If Father stayed healthy, Naima was sure he would earn enough to provide food and pay back the rickshaw loan. But they could never afford the list of extras that she kept tucked inside her mind. A good supply of new paints and paper weren't the only items on the list. Mother wore that same faded cotton sari every day. She needed a new one made of silk to wear on holidays. Father didn't have a woolen shawl to keep him warm on cold nights. And Rashida glanced sadly into the sweet shop when the sisters passed it. She loved juicy rashogola treats so much. Ah, that might be something we should look up. I'm going to write it in a different color. How about pink? Rashogola. Naima spooned her lentils onto her sister's banana leaf. Remember, they used that as a plate. If only I had been born a boy, she thought, then I could earn some money. Even just a little would help. Lie down for a few minutes, husband, Mother urged. You get so little rest. Even on Fridays, you drive other men to the mosque before joining them to worship. Father hesitated. He yawned. Promise to wake me after 15 minutes? Of course, Mother said. She dimmed the window with an old sheet. Slowly, Father lowered himself onto the mat. He searched the darkened hut to find Naima. Why don't you finish your alpana design, my daughter? That way you can keep an eye on the rickshaw, too. Yes, Father, Naima said, as she watched him slip almost instantly into sleep. Shh, girls, Mother said, tiptoeing around Father's quiet body. Rashida, wipe off the plates. Didn't you hear your father, Naima? Go out and take care of that rickshaw. Naima went outside into the stifling noontime heat. The card-playing men had gone inside. Somewhere a radio was blaring Bangladesh's national anthem. Naima didn't feel like painting alpanas. Instead, still frowning, she climbed onto the leather bench of Father's rickshaw, where the canopy provided some shade. Salim drove by again, this time with no passenger behind him. He glanced quickly around. Nobody was in sight, so he jumped off the cycle seat and walked over to Naima. What's wrong? He asked her. Actually, I'm going to make a note, and really, you guys, if you were doing a reading journal, you might do this too, of something you wanted to look up. So this type of food and also the Bangladesh national anthem. And here's a picture of the radio. Naima climbed down to join him. You help your father, she burst out. Why can't I help mine? Salim shrugged. You're a girl. Girls stay home and help their mothers. Boys earn money and work with their fathers. That's just the way it is. But why? It's not like that everywhere, Salim. When I passed the tea stall this morning and peeked in at the television, I saw a Bangladeshi lady on the screen who was a doctor. And the last time he went to the city, Father told us he visited a shoe stand owned by a woman. If these women can do it, why can't I? What are you going to do, open a shoe stand here? Naima sighed. That's the problem. I'd need money to do something like that. Besides, have you ever seen a girl, or even a woman, selling anything in our marketplace? You're right, Salim said. I haven't. They were quiet. Then, too bad I can't turn myself into a boy, Naima said. Yes, that would be great. We could play like we used to, out in the open. You could join in our cricket games, and Naima, are you listening? So it sounds like she sort of got lost in her own daydreams there. So now this is chapter 4. The wheels in Naima's mind were spinning wildly. That's actually a frequently occurring metaphor, right? Because none of us have wheels in our brain that are turning. That just means you're thinking about a lot of things, which is a good thing. She stared at Salim's clothes. He wore a short lungai, a kurta shirt, and a cap. So lungai and kurta. A cap that was just big enough to hide a girl's coiled braid. She's getting another one of her ideas, Salim told his reflection in the rickshaw's tin panel. Naima, what are you thinking? What if I disguised myself as a boy, Naima asked. I could drive Father's rickshaw for an hour or two every day. He'd have a chance to rest, and I could earn some money. Salim shook his head. People will still recognize you. It might work at twilight, Naima said. You can't see faces clearly at that time of day. Naima, it won't work, I tell you. Your passengers will know you're a girl as soon as they hear your voice. I wouldn't have to say much. Besides, I can sound like a boy. Listen to this. Naima deepened her voice. 3 taka for a ride to the marketplace and back. Salim grinned. You sound more like a boy than I do, he said. But this might be a good time to remember some history, Naima. Like the time you wanted us to walk all the way to the Dhaka Zoo, for example. Even though it takes 4 hours to get there by train. We were only 6 years old. Father found us before it got dark. What about the time you almost drowned trying to catch fish with that new kind of net you invented? I really thought those knots wouldn't break, Naima said, shrugging, but they did. Anyway, you pulled me to shore in plenty of time. But this is different, Salim. I'm older now. I'll ask Mother and Father for permission first. Even if they let you try wearing a disguise, which I'm not sure they won't, somebody in the village will find out. They'll start gossiping. You'll bring shame to your whole family, Naima. And you don't want to do that. I don't care, Naima said fiercely. It's more shameful that I can't help by earning a little money. Besides, Mother and Father can keep a secret. Even Rashida knows how to hold her tongue. Hold her tongue is an idiom, right? Hold her tongue means don't tell a secret. I promised to stay away from the relatives' huts. Somebody switched off the radio and Salim climbed back on his cycle seat. There has to be another way for you to earn some money, he told her. We'll think of something, Naima. Interesting. So a lot of times, like I was saying about the cover of the book, pictures in the book indicate something important. So the feather might come to be important in some way. There isn't another way, Naima said, folding her arms and jutting out her chin. Salim sighed, shook his head, and drove away. Naima stuck out her tongue at his back. Easy for you to say, she thought you're a boy. She turned back to the rickshaw, and in her imagination, she moved forward with her plan. First, she'd convince her parents. Father, you need rest. You can't get sick again. Mother, it's only an hour a day. Nobody will recognize me. Here's her sticking out her tongue at Salim. She's upset, right? What a wonderful idea, Naima, Mother would say. You're so thoughtful. See, I told you a daughter's just as good as a son, Father would add. I knew she could do it. But could she? She squinted at Father's rickshaw, sparkling in the sunshine after her cleaning. It was beautiful, but it looked so heavy. She'd never driven one before. She was about the same size as Salim, though, and he managed to turn the pedals. She'd just have to show Father how good she was. Then he'd be sure to let her try it. That is the end of the chapter. I think we will have time for one more. Naima glanced around. The village was silent, the lane empty. Quickly she climbed up on the cycle seat. She had to stand to reach both pedals at the same time. Grasping the handles for balance, she pressed hard with her feet. The rickshaw didn't budge. Naima pushed against the pedals with all her might. The rickshaw started rolling downhill. She was doing it. She was driving the rickshaw. As she turned the pedals, Naima pictured Father's smile as she handed him the taka she had earned. In her mind's eye, Mother got teary as she unwrapped a silk sari that Naima had picked out. An imaginary Rashida giggled as she popped one rashagala after another into her mouth, devouring the whole pot that Naima had brought home from the sweet shop. Before she realized what was happening, the lane began to curve at the bottom of the slope. A thicket of bushes loomed ahead. They were coming closer and closer. Desperately, Naima tried to turn the rickshaw, but she couldn't seem to change directions. She squeezed the handbrakes as hard as she could, but the rickshaw seemed to pick up speed instead of slowing down. She couldn't steer it. She couldn't stop. Just before the rickshaw careened into the bushes, Naima managed to jump off the cycle. She landed on her hands and knees in the dusty lane. Crash! The rickshaw just kept hurtling through the thicket like a stampeding animal. Uh-oh. So you guys are probably thinking what I'm thinking, like this brand new rickshaw. So not only did she fall, luckily she doesn't seem hurt, but there goes that rickshaw that was brand new. Naima stayed where she was and listened to the rasp of thorns clawing the tin. Her heart was beating like a tabla drum. There's a good simile. When everything was still, she stood up and made herself look. The thorns had captured Father's gleaming new rickshaw, bushes closing around it like a trap. Naima groaned and turned away. Rashida was standing at the curve of the lane, her mouth as round as an alpana circle. Naima gestured at her sister, combing the air with her palm down, and Rashida raced down the hill. The two sisters struggled to pull out the rickshaw, but it was too heavy for them. Get Father, Naima said finally. She sat on a rock and waited, her head in her hands. What had she done? Why hadn't she stopped to think? Mother was right. Naima was too thoughtless. Salim had been right too. This had been another one of her silly ideas. Father and Mother and Rashida came running. Mother gathered Naima close. Then she held her out at arm's length, scanning her face, hands, body. "Are you bleeding?" she asked. "I'm all right, Mother, but..." Father was already in the bushes. Somehow he managed to wrestle the rickshaw back onto the lane. All four of them gasped when they saw the scratches on the leather and the dents on the tin. The peacock feathers on the side panels were torn and ragged. Even the painted lotus flowers on the back panel had been clawed by the thorns. "Eesh," Mother wailed. "You've ruined the rickshaw, Naima. What were you thinking?" I was trying to drive it." "What? Why in the world would you do something like that?" "I'm sorry," Naima managed to say, fighting back tears. "I was trying to see if I could drive it so I could give Father a rest." It was too late to explain her whole idea. She knew they'd never let her try it now. "The sun has been shining too hot on your head, daughter," Mother scolded. "Have you ever seen a girl driving a rickshaw? I thought you were growing up, Naima, but you're as careless as ever." Father didn't say anything. His face was grim. He climbed on and pushed the pedals. The rickshaw moved slowly, like an ox obeying its master, even though it didn't want to. "Still works," Father called out over his shoulder, heading for the hut. Naima could hear the relief in his voice. She spanked the dust off her hands and clothes hard, and trudged uphill slowly behind Mother and Rashida. So, that is the end of chapter 5. And I will leave you with the thought of, how do you think Rashida is feeling? So, if you watch this and you would like to comment with how you think she is feeling, that would be a cool thing to do. All right, see you next time.